We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win, and the others too.
Video has a uniquely profound way to unite an audience towards a common goal. The speech you just watched was JFK inspiring the entire nation about the audacious vision to put a human on the moon. Back then, JFK inspired us to land on the moon within the same decade. 55 years later, humanity has progressed meaningfully. Our reach is no longer limited by where humans can go. Instead, we have robots exploring on our behalf. How do they share that experience? It's via imagery. Imagery is powerful. Imagery is inspiring. Imagery is immersive. The higher quality the imagery, the more powerful, inspiring, and immersive it becomes. Today, I will rationalize an unhealthy obsession with the ultimate viewer experience, a metrics-driven framework to pursue it, and a case study on how I learned the importance of metrics at scale when building the real-time personalized ad insertion framework for Thursday Night Football in my role as VP of Engineering at Amazon Web Services Elemental team. My name is Khawaja. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Momento. My team prides itself in the relentless pursuit of excellence to power the back end of immersive experiences. We offer a platform for caching and messaging that maintains consistent performance for the most unpredictable high-scale applications that are simply too critical to fail. My co-presenter is our mascot, Mo. He's here to simply help make the content more engaging and to support me. Let's dive straight in to exemplify metrics-driven decisions. But wait, before we dive in, I want to start by sharing a secret that I learned while working at NASA. Metrics can be a huge distraction when viewed in isolation without having a thought of the whole picture. Let me illustrate this with a quick example. Take a guess as to what this metric is. That's right, it's the speed of light, indisputable. 54.6 billion meters to 401 billion meters is simply the distance from Earth to Mars, depending on where the planets are in their orbital rotation. Again, important metrics. But what it comes down to is that at the speed of light, it can take 1,337 seconds to reach Mars. That's 22 minutes. This is a harsh reality to internalize. It means that even if I invested billions of dollars in making the speed of light just a little bit faster, you still can't drive the rover with a joystick. What matters is how quickly the latest data are available to the scientists so that they can plan for the next day. The speed of light matters. The distance to Mars matters. But either way, contrary to common belief, you cannot drive a Mars rover via a joystick. Instead, scientists plan what the rover is going to do for an entire day and upload that all the list of operations to it on a daily basis. And sometimes the time between them receiving the latest pictures and then having to make a decision for the rover to do its bidding for the whole day, that could be as short as 4 hours. So the metric that ends up mattering here is much more about how quickly the images are ready so that they can make the best decisions, as opposed to the other metrics that we talked about. Grounding this with video, let's talk a little bit about the ultimate viewer experience. Today, the viewers have more choices than ever, and providing the ultimate viewer experience helps sustain engagement in a very noisy world. And the metrics that really impact the viewers and their behavior are how often they're buffering. Are they getting the highest possible video quality through a higher bitrate? Are they getting instant gratification via the fastest possible time to first frame? And are they getting a reliable experience? And metrics are the key to the ultimate viewer experience. Pursuing the ultimate viewer experience requires an unhealthy obsession with customer-facing metrics. Identifying those metrics in terms of concrete SLOs not only helps detect failures, but it really helps to forge a culture of relentless excellence. With the right metrics, you can measure the efficacy of your initiatives and even identify which initiatives to take on next. Let's walk through how the unhealthy obsession with metrics led me to realize a forgotten component in the media pipeline. So the year is 2017. Amazon has to stream Thursday Night Football and inject personalized ads. We're still building the service, and it is a very large service. And you can see in the press release, 18.4 million fans watching it across 600 different devices from 224 different countries. And all that does is it helps you internalize as a builder what's really at stake here. How many people's experience could get disrupted if you impact the viewer experience here? And a lot can go wrong when inserting ads on the server in real time with millions of concurrent viewers. But what if everything went right? What if there weren't any unusual number of errors, no timeouts, no latency degradation? Does that mean that the viewer experience was unimpacted? And that's, if all you resorted to, all you focused on was input metrics, the answer would be probably. But obsessing with the right metrics matters a lot, because what really matters to viewers is glass-to-glass latency, having the highest possible bitrate to show the highest possible video quality, and no buffering whatsoever. And let's dive into this particular metric. I call it my favorite metric because it really captures the viewer experience that could be eroded by a variety of input metrics and componentry inside the media pipeline. ZBR, or zero buffer rates, is the ultimate metric to capture the viewer experience in a live event. It measures the percentage of your viewers that are able to stream the entire stream without a single buffering event. Imagine if you're at a party with a game playing in the background and there's a sudden awkward pause. Really disrupts the viewer experience, whether it's a party or just me watching my screen and I have to see that spinner. And to really internalize this, we have to understand how hard the life of a video player is, especially as the standards for glass-to-glass latency are increasing. And the poor video player has to maintain a look-ahead buffer. It has to deal with fluctuating bandwidth on CDNs and on the home Wi-Fi and the cellular networks. It has to deal with connectivity issues on the to the POP. And the CDN POPs are doing whatever they can to help out here. And that in the video stream is basically optimizing the amount of load that they inflict on the server. And they do this by collapsing requests. If there's thousands of viewers hitting the origin POPs for a segment at the live edge, the POP isn't going to send thousands of requests back to the origin. As soon as it gets that cache hit or cache miss, it's going to collapse all those requests into a single request and then send it to the origin, while everybody who made that request waits for the origin to respond to that single request. And the video player, as I mentioned, has a tough job in its attempt to keep the look-ahead buffer while dealing with the fluctuating bandwidth on the cellular Wi-Fi network. But the CDN POPs are doing their best to collapse the request. But what really causes the player to run out of a buffer? A slow request response on a segment, a stale manifest so that a player can't detect the segment, or a write error at the origin. And this chart here is basically emulating what a bandwidth for home user looks like. It's not continuous, it's doing this. And the area under the curve of this particular chart captures the amount of video bytes a player can download, the maximum number of bytes it can download. And every millisecond that the player is sitting idle, not downloading to make sure it's making the most out of its available bandwidth, is a lost opportunity cost. And that could happen due to the 3 reasons I mentioned before. And if you do it often enough, well, you are buffering even though you're not utilizing even half of the bandwidth that is available to you. And in a typical video pipeline, what we have learned is there's been an incredible amount of effort that the industry has put on the encoders, from codecs to algorithms to all kinds of optimizations, going from hardware to software, back to hardware, and so forth. There's been a ton of effort put in on the CDNs, multi-CDN architectures, having media shields, POP-facing POPs. A lot of work has been done on the CDNs. A lot of work has also been done on the players itself to deal with failovers and handoffs and all of that. But what was at play with personalized ad insertion was the origin. Instead of a regular repackager or a simple origin, we swapped in a manifest manipulation service that personalized each manifest in real time based on inputs from ad decisioning servers. And it was this impact, this obsession with ZBR that forced us to internalize that the CDN is there to amplify the origin. And that's not just the bandwidth of the origin. It actually ends up amplifying the errors and the latencies from the origin as well due to the request collapsing. And what I learned fighting ZBR at this scale was threefold. First, the origin has a huge blast radius. Milliseconds matter even at the tail. When you have that one request to the origin, it might be coming from a POP that has thousands of viewers waiting. It might be coming from a media shield which has multiple POPs, each with thousands of viewers waiting for that segment to arrive. And lastly, you can't cache segments that do not exist. And all that illustrates is the importance of low write errors. When an encoder encounters a write error on a segment, well, it's typically not going to update the manifest until it retries and succeeds. And if the manifest isn't updated, well, the players don't get to learn about the segments. If they don't learn about the segment, they can't go grab it because it wouldn't even exist. So little details like the write errors, the latency, and just the consistent performance really start to come in and become illuminated as soon as you start looking at it from the perspective of the end user experience as opposed to error rates, transaction rates, and just latencies in isolation. Again, the viewers really care about is lowest latency, highest bitrate, and lowest buffers. Poor origination gets in the way when it gives you stale manifests, when it gives you slower response, or has a write failure, or it requires just repartitioning in general. And the key takeaway isn't just the origination piece. The key takeaway here is that relentless obsession with metrics to help you uncover other components in your ecosystem that may be forgotten or overlooked.
It's very fine. I'm going to step off the limb. It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
That's one small step for man,
Pequeño paso para el
one giant
pero un
leap
gran salto
for
gigante
mankind.
para la humanidad. Dragut, lahan sa
JFK's speech inspired the entire nation. But that video of Neil Armstrong landing on the moon united the entire world. We all saw the first human land on the moon at the same time, regardless of the time zones you're in, regardless of the nationalities. And video made that possible. And the bar for video, believe it or not, was much lower back then. People were really happy just to be able to stream that content. And it was so low that this particular camera that filmed this was recording at roughly 10 frames per second, and only screens at Johnson Space Center in Houston could play that video at 10 frames per second. So to do frame rate conversion, what the ingenious folks who were responsible for broadcasting to the world did was they just point a camera at that screen and broadcasted it to the world. Today's video engineering solves even harder problem than getting video back from the moon. The standards are higher. We're worrying about cross-generational transcode data loss, right? As opposed to just being able to point a camera at another screen. Internet streaming is a completely different beast than broadcasting one stream globally. And viewers have more options than ever. We walked through one example of how viewer-facing metrics uncover a critical problem from a traditionally overlooked component. But in an era where viewers have infinite choices with a rapidly evolving technical landscape and limited budgets, it's more important than ever to not only innovate, but to ground these innovations with this unhealthy obsession with viewer-facing metrics. Thank you.